You know, when people talk about music that they like, a lot of the time people will quote lyrics. They'll talk about the lyrical content of music, and that will be the intrigue that brings them to music in general. That's not so much the case for me. A lot of the time it's the instrumentation and the melodicism. So like for something like rap, I'll like the instrumentals and I'll like the flows. Like that's the thing that really makes me gravitate towards rap, generally speaking. Like there are times when I do like lyrics, but for the most part, it's just the music in terms of like the melodicism and the music theory. But here's some instances in which the lyrics really popped out to me to such an extent I was like, I'm gonna keep that in mind. So this first one, it's not necessarily the first time I was moved by a lyric, but it's the first time I decided to like write it down for the future, and it made me have this idea for a video. This is something that I was thinking about like a year ago, but I sort of put it off a little bit. Whenever you do a simile or something like that, there's automatically a relationship between the two things that you compare. It kind of forces you, it begs you to see how those two things are alike. So when Mac Miller does something like this,
I wish I took a simpler route instead of having demons that's as big as my house.
It's not just talking about the fact that he has mental problems. It is also talking about the immense wealth that he has, and it's interesting to see that relationship not necessarily have a direct correlation with each other, but see that the wealth doesn't cancel out the mental issues that he has and the demons that he always has chasing after him. These sort of monolithic things that are happening to him are alike in quality, both good and bad, and it just seems like in his life, in all regards, there is a quality of excess, and it just seems overwhelming, whether it's good or bad, and it all just sort of becomes a little too overstimulating. For this next one, it's probably the saddest one, and I've been thinking about tragedy a little bit. I've been thinking about going into it a little more in the future, but when I think about tragedy, I think about not just something being sad, but it's really close to being a good thing. But then at the last part of the race, it sort of takes a left turn, and then that's where the tragedy comes from, how close you were to getting that happy ending. So when I hear this lyric,
I'm sad again. Don't tell my boyfriend it's not what he's made for.
it's heartbreaking because I've been thinking about the ideals of relationships lately, and it's about having a life partner who you want to confide everything in. You want to share the rest of your life with them. You want them to be your best friend. And to think that someone is with you as your life partner, and yet you have this sort of intense internal woe that you have, and you can't share it with them because they just, from the ground up, wouldn't understand in a sort of non-vicarious sense. It's heart shattering, honestly, because you want so badly to be able to share with them because that is someone that you trust, but at the same time, just the construction, whether it's nature or nurture or the gender politics of like our current reality, however you want to slice it, it just so happens to be the case that like male female gender dynamics, all these things are sort of having a interplay with each other to such an extent that there are some things that just can't be understood, and it has to be sort of how do I say it? The only way to understand is through that first person experience of walking a mile in their shoes. I'm gonna jump the gun a little bit with this next one. This is a Pinkpantheress one. I've been listening to a lot of Pinkpantheress. She's awesome. She just released an album recently, and here's the thing about Pinkpantheress. She's really good at being obsessed.
'Cause I just had a dream I was dead, and I only cared 'cause I was taken from you.
I've been thinking a lot about the idea of things that are worse than death. And this is a really good example of that. Like, to care for someone more than yourself, to put their life ahead of yours. What a sort of twisted, over invested manifestation of attraction and love and care. It's wonderfully illustrated, and the sweetness of her voice and the sonic palette that she makes, it sort of softens the reality of what she's saying. Because if you find yourself in a situation like this, it's not good. This isn't what you want to be in. But it's just so affecting when she says these words, and you can find a lot of instances of it in her music. This next one is another one that I've been thinking about for a long time, and I talked about it in a recent video. This is just a great example of using the form of the song in order to further illustrate and hammer down the point.
Making all of this money, hoping I don't get rich, cause niggas still getting bodied from phones. Sometimes the truth don't rhyme.
When you think about the reality of taking lives for the sake of shoes, it seems like an alien concept from the get-go. It sounds bizarre. It sounds almost comedic, because it's something so beyond the pale for people who are more fortunate and have that monetary capital more easily accessible to them. But when you're talking about and thinking about the aesthetics, like the way you present yourself and how that is often one of the only things that you have in order to distinguish yourself from others, and a way to make yourself feel good, then that reality of killing someone for the sake of your shoes becomes a lot more tangible. And it sounds crazy, but it's real and it's happening in our world. So it's just something really weird to think about, but when you lay down the train tracks, it becomes a lot more feasible. And when you can lay down the train tracks, you also see a way to alleviate and rectify the issue. So yeah, it's there. So yeah, phenomenologically, it's not a foregone conclusion. It's not an isolated instance sociologically. It's something that can be rectified. So it's a nice thing to keep in mind, to know that we have an agency in how the world can be better. So this is Lady Brown we're talking about. Great song. And in the song, he's talking about someone who is physically beautiful, but also someone who he really vibes with on a metaphysical level. And that's something that he portrays throughout all his verses in flowery language that it meets the heightened way he feels about this woman. But my favorite part of the song is this.
I can see your heavenly ways and heavenly gaze, and plus I know her that she hasn't asked for days. Okay.
Because at the end of the song, he's just like, you know what? Yeah, I'm saying all that stuff, and she's great. She's fantastic in all these ways that are sort of metaphysically beautiful to me. But at the end of the day, man, that ass though, that ass though. I'm just saying.